Okay.
They live near Cherrytown.
Yeah.
It looks like it.
So it's a kind of congested up that lucky area. It's on the Madison River. I love that area. I didn't know it was it peaks that area.
Oh my goodness.
That's a little bit.
Yeah, got one more coming yet.
That's New York.
Yeah.
New York City.
How to do an evening.
I had no trouble.
That'd be number 13. That's Whitney's daughter. 9 months old, that picture. 2011. Yeah, in the leads. Derek and Sam, Lori's son. This is Don Pearson's granddaughter.
No, so I can't. I mean, get up
Here's She's got a 4-year-old son. And this is Lori's grandson. Chelsea and Joey. I'm from a big family. You got a lot of names here. I don't remember the birthdays like I used to. Losing a little bit of that touch. Yeah, a lot of the end of the month of my birthday cards for the next month.
Right.
Got that blessing. Know when to send them and everything. So.
It's that community calendar we used to have, kept everybody's birthdays and anniversaries on.
That's Prince too small. I don't use it too
Right,
much.
yeah.
Do they still make that? Do they?
Yeah.
Somewhere, and they had it.
Do the Christmas lights.
That's my thought.
So there's still.
Yes, they do.
He's like 68 years.
Well, I've seen it both ways, and music.
Must be though.
You can order it to the
Many more. They order it in all town and pick up the calendar down the road.
That'll be a genealogist treasure trove.
Yeah.
If somebody would attempt a calendar each year,
Electronically, yeah. If they could mine that, that'd be phenomenal. To verify who did where.
electronically, never before electronics was.
Yeah.
Those
Yeah,
things.
they were still typesetting on paper.
Yes.
Tim's got his Christmas tie on. I got my Christmas jacket on. I got my Christmas ring on today. So, Christmas matches, yeah.
Welcome to New Madison, First Universalist. On this blustery, well, it's not really blustery, I guess you could say overcast winter's day. Do we have any announcements?
Well, a couple announcements. Yesterday was a blustery day because there were some bell ringers
Yes.
at the mini mart.
Ooh.
And needless to say, I think a good bit of money was collected. And we called the gentleman to come pick it up, and he was quite surprised and pleasantly surprised by my man. So a good thing for our church, and thanks to Dolly and Tim.
And Mary was there.
Yes.
Did you stay outside when you were collecting?
Yeah, I'll go in sometimes for a warm up.
Here's a picture on the screen of what it looks like. You have the little kettle. People were really nice, and I thought pretty generous because almost a large majority of people either put in their change or a couple dollar bills. I saw a couple $10 bills in
I
there.
did too, and 20.
And I was just totally amazed. It was windy, It was cold. The number of people who got out of their cars and walked into the mini mart with a t-shirt and shorts on just blew my mind. And I even said something to some of them. I said, "Where's your pants?" And they just looked at me like, "I'm not cold. How could you not be cold? It's like 35 or 40 degrees out here and the wind's blowing."
It's amazing how many people come and go through that place down there.
Yeah, it was just packed. And interesting, I remember when we did it 2 years ago, they didn't do it last year, I don't think, because of the virus. And I had the picture of the people with those weird shirts on with the faces on the front of them. The guy that didn't have anybody that strange, but I did see a huge horse trailer and a guy and his daughter, both of them dressed in the Western with the felt hats and the boots and all that stuff. That was pretty interesting. And then the other guy in the four-wheel drive pickup with the cowboy hat on and the cowboy everything else, he was wearing spurs.
Wow.
Driving his pickup truck wearing spurs. So I'm not exactly sure.
Must have been a
He was
show or exhibition somewhere.
Yes. He looked just a little bit on the rough side, so I wasn't going to ask him, what's with the spurs, buddy? I wasn't going to do that. But other than that.
The only other announcement that I have, of course, and Tim, you may be getting ready to mention this, but Derek Barker and the El Dorado Church has invited us, anyone that would like to attend. It's 4 o'clock on Christmas Eve is their service. And you are more than welcome to attend, and we also posted that in the UU online update.
Yeah, everybody's welcome to go to El Dorado, 4 o'clock Christmas Eve. They're going to have music and an actual, I think it'll be a short service, but it'll be a complete service.
Yes.
So. And I'm going with Tara to New Carlisle for their Christmas Eve service at 8. But as I pass through on the way back, I'm going to come in here, light all the lights, and just do a quick 5-minute Facebook thing. So so we have a presence. So there's no attendance, because I don't even know what time it's going to be. It's whatever time I get here. But you'll be able to see that on Facebook if you want to see it. Okay.
I have something.
Yes.
Remember, I mentioned Johansson's son that had a stroke and has been hospitalized for quite a while.
Who's that?
John Johansson.
Oh, yes.
Betty Lou's husband.
Yeah.
His son, Aaron, had a stroke, and he's been hospitalized for a long time. And last week, his wife went in to see him, of course, and she thought, while I'm here, I may as well have my test, my
COVID test?
Yeah. And she has breast cancer.
Oh my gosh.
So he's trying to recover from a stroke, and she doesn't know yet what they'll be doing about her problem.
Okay, well, we're kind of doing joys and concerns. We might as well throw this in too. Dolly and Mary were there yesterday. They said they wouldn't be at church here today because her husband, her ex-husband, I guess, is checking himself into hospice. I guess he's had a long history of medical problems.
Yes.
And from my understanding from her, that he's just tired of dealing with it, so he stopped eating. So that's his choice of what he wants to do, so she's going to be supporting him in that. So we want to keep Dolly and Mary's with her all the time, keep them in our thoughts and prayers.
It's Dolly's ex-husband?
Yeah, Dolly's ex-husband.
They stay in good contact with each other.
Yeah, and she's been very supportive of him, so and is going to support him on this last journey that he's making.
So he's just resigned?
He's just decided it's not worth fighting. And I support people and however they want to do that, if they want to do that, and that is not eating is one of the more painless ways. If you want to come to your final end and cross over that rainbow bridge, that's one of the more painless ways to do it. Unless you get a doctor to assist you, which in this country is not possible yet. So we want to keep them in our thoughts and prayers. Anything else? I can't think of anything right now. We might as well throw this in since we're doing that. The virus is getting really bad. Wayne, Reed, all the hospitals, but particularly the ones we know about, Wayne and Reed, they've canceled all their elective surgeries. All their beds are filled. We talked to Eric, the chief of the EMS service here in New Madison and for Tri-Village. They've been taking patients in, and there's not any beds in the emergency room. They've been setting patients in the waiting room until the staff can see them. So if somebody calls for an ambulance, which means they're fairly sick, or they would drive themselves to the hospital, and then they sit in the waiting room until a place can be opened up. So it is imperative that you wear your masks and stay away from people, disinfect your hands. Nobody seems to believe this. Every place I go, even at the mini mart, I think probably 2 people had a mask on.
And if they do, they might be below their nose.
Well, yeah, and they were both younger people, and I could tell they were conscious of what's going on because they put it on in the car before they came into the building and then took it off when they came out. I had mine on at the beginning, but I took it off later because we're standing outside and I'm like 10 feet away from anybody. Nobody came up within 10 feet, so. Plus, it's hard to smile at people when you have a mask on. You want to encourage them to give money, so you smile and say hi. So, okay, the prelude. Behold that star of Bethlehem.
When I'm playing this, you can kind of come to yourself, behold that star, behold that star. In somewhere. It is the star of Bethlehem. You can kind of go along with it in your mind.
Christmas service, which that's what this is. Christmas will be next Sunday or next Saturday. Eric will be here with us next Sunday. There's all kinds of stuff for Christmas that the material provides. So we're going to cram a bunch of it in today, and there's be a little bit left over, so we're going to do that next Sunday. So you're going to get plenty of it. Our chalice lighting is written by a Unitarian who I didn't know was a Unitarian. Charles Dickens was an actual Unitarian, changed late in his life. And we're lighting our chalice with his words. I have always thought of Christmas time when it has come around as a good time, a kind, forgiving, charitable time. The only time I know of in the long calendar of the year when men and women seem by one consent to open their shut-up hearts freely, to think of people below them as if they were really fellow passengers. We light our chalice for all our fellow passengers in this life, that this holiday may bring lightness where there is heaviness, joy where there is sorrow. And you can see the reflections of A Christmas Carol and Scrooge as he was transformed in the end. And that is one of our favorite movies, is Scrooge the musical with Albert Finney. If you've never seen that movie, if we ever get our movie night started, I may show that one to you. Our opening hymn, 237, The First Noel. And we were just talking about this. I had no idea. I always thought Noel was O-N-E-L.
Yeah.
It is actually N-O-W-E-L-L by second choice, because that's what's in our hymnal, which out of all the years, 60, 70 years that I've been looking at that and never noticed it. Isn't it amazing how you can keep learning no matter
I
how old
wondered
you
about
get?
that too.
Our affirmation, what we're going to do, this is Christmas, and we're doing this the traditional Christmas. We're going to do a little reading from Luke chapter 2, which that's basically the Christmas story. And it came to pass in those days that there went out a decree from Caesar Augustus that all the world should be taxed. And this taxing was first made when Cyrenius was governor of Syria, and all went to be taxed, everyone into his own city. And Joseph also went up from Galilee out of the city of Nazareth into Judea, into the city of David, which is called Bethlehem, because he was of the house and lineage of David, to be taxed with Mary, his espoused wife, being great with child. And so it was that, while they were there, the days were accomplished that she should be delivered. I love the King James Version. And so she brought forth her firstborn son, and wrapped him in swaddling clothes, and laid him in a manger, because there was no room for them in the inn. And there were in the same country shepherds abiding in the fields, keeping watch over their flocks by night. And lo, the angel of the Lord came upon them, and the glory of the Lord shone round them, and they were sore afraid. And the angel said to them, Fear not, for behold, I bring you good tidings of great joy, which shall be to all people. For unto you is born this day in the city of David a Savior, which is Christ the Lord. And this shall be a sign unto you: you shall find the babe wrapped in swaddling clothes, lying in a manger. And suddenly there was with the angel a multitude of the heavenly host, praising God and saying, Glory to God in the highest, and on earth peace, goodwill toward men. All right. Now we have a presentation. Mike and Roberta have the Solstice Carol, and we always love to hear their pairings.
The winter solstice, coming right up on Tuesday, December 21st, shortest day of the year, and let there be light thereafter. Ring the bells of solstice, joyful songs and chanting. Cast the circle, bring the seed we bless for the springtime planting. Neath the snowy silence, all rebirth is now begotten. Morning born from darkness deep in earth, from times forgotten. Joyous new beginnings, winter's dark attending. Life in spiral dances, spun from endings never ending. From the woods resplendent, holly and boughs be taken. Drum resounding, call to the unconquered sun. Awaken.
Very nice. And we want to continue the UU tradition of not having Christianity in the service, so we're still blending both. And our children's story continues on that. This is the children's story, A Baby Was Born, by Gwen Matthews. Once upon a time, a baby was born. Even before that baby was born, there were people waiting and wishing and hoping for that baby. The people who were waiting and wishing and hoping for that baby didn't know exactly what that baby would be like. And so they wondered, would the baby have a smile so warm that it could melt the coldest snow and ice? Would the baby have a voice so strong that it could shake the very mountains? Would the baby be so courageous that all would be comforted, even the most ferocious storms? Would the baby show the world so much love that peace would settle into even the most hardened hearts? But even as they asked these questions, as they imagined what the baby might be like, the people who were waiting and wishing and hoping for the baby already believed the baby would indeed have a warm smile, a strong voice, a courageous spirit, and a loving heart. And they weren't wrong. When Jesus was born, his tiny body was wrapped up to keep out the cold. He was laid down on straw in a trough that was used to feed the animals inside of a barn. His young parents, proud and exhausted, had been forced to take a long journey far from home. Jesus' parents were two of the people who had been waiting and wishing and hoping for him to be born. But there were people who had been waiting and wishing and hoping for Jesus to come. These people saw hurt and suffering in the world, and they believed that this new baby Jesus could use his voice to spread a message of love and peace. And they knew it would take courage for him to do so. But Jesus wasn't the only baby that people have waited and wished and hoped for. People also waited and wished and hoped for you. Once upon a time, you were born. But even before you were born, there were people waiting and wishing and hoping for you. But those people who were wishing and waiting and hoping for you didn't know exactly what you would be like. And so they wondered, would you be kind? Would you be brave? Would you show love? Would you spread peace and joy? Even as they asked these questions, as the people who were waiting and wishing and hoping for you imagined what you might be like, what kind of person you might grow up to be. They already believed that you would be kind and brave and loving, that you would spread peace and joy in our world. They knew that you could speak, that you could help ease the suffering and hurt in the world, that you would speak out against violence and oppression. They weren't wrong. We've done our our sharing of joys and concerns. Do we have any others to add? I've put the candles up already.
Yeah,
Yes.
Go ahead.
Okay.
I'm gonna say great-grandson number 12 came along.
Number 12. Wow.
Houston Daniel Springer.
Houston Daniel Springer, blessed be. And I'm sure people were waiting, they were wishing, they were hoping, and they have expectations of Daniel. Okay.
Kenny?
Yes.
What did you say is the last name?
Springer.
Springer.
Oh, my daughter's last name is Spring.
Oh my, yeah. Got a concern, had a brother in California, Brother Dave had a heart attack this past week.
Oh my.
They did a catheterization and removed some blockages and put in stents, and he's back home, I think doing pretty well.
Good. Usually that works pretty good if they can expand those arteries quick enough, which is the progress of medical science is just amazing. I look back on my surgery 30 years ago, 40 years ago, 50 years ago, 100 years ago, 200 years ago. If you had arthritis and couldn't walk and were using a cane, that's the way you were going to be until you died. It was just going to get worse until you couldn't walk at all. Now they just take you in, just like a car, take a piece out, put another piece in, and off you go.
It's outpatient surgery.
It's
now.
outpatient surgery. That's the insurance company.
Even 3 years ago, it wasn't outpatient surgery.
Yeah, when I was working at the hospital, it wasn't outpatient surgery.
Yes.
And there were many complications, which is why I delayed mine so long, because the complications weighed heavy on me. We want to remember Aaron, his family, his mother, medical problems from one side on another. Thank goodness the hostages in Haiti have all been released, evidently all of them in good health. We want to remember the people who are suffering from the virus. I keep getting notifications, and I don't know why it doesn't sink in. All these people who denied, and these are public figures, usually they're Republicans. I mean, 99% of them are Republicans who say there is no virus, it's all a hoax, and a year later they die of the virus. So people, I don't know how to change their minds, I don't know how to help them learn. Just pay attention to the news, and I guess you have to believe the news when you see it. There are many ills. The fires continue out west, the floods continue, the tornado in Mayfield, Kentucky. Luckily, they have just announced that they are not finding, everybody who is missing has been found. So the death toll so far is 77, which is much less than they expected, considering the devastation that was leveled on that city and that whole belt. There's many more little tiny cities that didn't get the publicity. Our caring and concern won't end because the news cycle ends. The federal government, FEMA, has been down there. Even the people who don't believe in the federal government have been glad to see them come. So, all right. Any other joys and concerns?
I
Yes.
just reiterate, the conflict continues in Yemen, and quite a level of starvation, children and adults going there, a complex diplomatic problem, but more importantly, a really underlying conflict between Iran and Saudi Arabia.
Yes.
And the poor Yemenis are the ones who are suffering, and particularly children. So let us remember them. Anything we can help, particularly through worldwide relief organizations and child welfare organizations, let's be mindful of that, particularly this holiday season.
That's the difficulty for the NGOs, the non-governmental organizations that provide aid. A lot of these rebel groups won't let those NGOs in. They won't let them provide aid. So and I'm not sure what the answer is to that. The UN has protective forces, but they're not an army. They're not an invading army. They try to keep people separated. They can't force people to do things. Our message for those, then for joys and concerns, those who need something, please let us know. We are always here for you, and for those thoughts and prayers and desires, fears, worries that you have that you can't bring forth, we support you in those as well. Our message is reimagining the Christmas story. This is a UU-based sermon, but I think it's fairly apropos for what we're talking about and what we're doing. It's called a metanoia moment, a word I had never heard before and didn't understand, but he explains it as we go through. We are a few days, I think 6, away from what has come to be traditionally celebrated as the birth of Jesus of Nazareth. I say what has become to be the traditional celebration because some believe the real birth of Jesus was sometime in April or some other time, and that this time of the year was chosen because of its proximity to the already celebrated holidays associated with solstice and the various pagan rituals. And we've all heard those stories. Jesus was born into an empire of enormous proportions. It spanned from Western Europe to the heart of Africa, and possibly as many as 1 in 4 people on the planet lived under its rule. The Roman Empire was a huge institution with a matching bureaucracy, hence the taxation. In the early years of the Christian movement, Christianity was just a part of a myriad of religious or other kinds of social groups. In the ethnically, geographically, socially, culturally complex world of the Roman Empire, people with similar interests banded together in voluntary associations to preserve a sense of identity. They met in homes, taverns, or club rooms, drawn mostly from the lower classes. They would designate some deity or deities as their patrons and honor these gods in formal ways as protectors and helpers. This, in part, was because this world of the Roman Empire was so often defined by domination and power. People felt a need for protection from, among other things, the forces of the empire itself. And I've been doing some reading in Roman history. All the early Greek and Roman religions, if you know about Jupiter and Zeus and all the protective gods, nowhere in those religions did it teach anything about morality or ethics. It was all about the use of power and how to get the gods on your side. Remember that as we start to talk about the birth of Christ and what Christianity brought to humanity. The birth of Jesus, the way I believe it was meant to be told, was an entirely different story that was a contrast to the power of Rome and the ways of the day. I remember a professor in seminary once said, the story of the Hebrew Bible in some ways was a story of our relationship to God. The story of the New Testament is a story of our relationship with each other. Old Testament, people's relation with God. New Testament, people's relation with each other. My textbook actually states it well when it offers this story. The birth of Jesus calls people to a new mode of life in which the traditional human and religious values are overturned. Instead of retaliation in kind to those who mistreat them, they are to love their enemies, to give generously to those who beg or even steal from them, acting in love toward all other humans as they would themselves like to be treated. The story of this birth and the life of Jesus could have easily been first widely recorded call for people to shift their consciousness about how to live in the world in peace and goodwill. This was a call of transformation, a call for a new framework, a call to work from a new paradigm. It was a call for a metamorphosis. This is a process of one form transcending a previous one. It is akin to the expression we use when we say something has morphed into something else. The word evolved from the Greek language, as does the word metanoia. How does an aquatic-only tadpole become an amphibious frog? How does a creeping larva change into a winged moth or a butterfly? These forms of life are so different that if we did not know otherwise, we might think that it would be impossible for the end product to have come to know what we know as the beginning. Metanoia uses the same prefix, meta, meaning beyond or outside of what was previous, outside the box, as we say when we want to describe a really significant new way of thinking. The second part of the word noia comes from nous in Greece, that's N-O-U-S. In Greek, the word for mind. So metanoia describes transcending a previous mindset and opening into a very different worldview, a new way of perceiving the world, a new way of thinking about how to deal with the issues that we face. My simple way of describing this is the transformation of thought. Among the Gospels of Christian Scripture, the translations for metanoia have usually been translated these words into having the meaning repent. In other words, change or open your mind about the gospel of Jesus and believe in it in order to achieve salvation. This is what continues to be commonly held in interpretation. But there are other ways to interpret this world. The time of waiting and groaning is complete. God's rule, not just Caesar's rule, is accessible to all of us now. We need to shift out of our ways of thinking and acting shaped by the culture of the Roman Empire. We need to rather to believe that good news for all is possible and that we can live into the new paradigm. We can already be what we wish to see happen. We can already be what we wish to see happen. No matter what our personal beliefs about the divine nature of the Bible, I believe that for too long, conservative theology has held a firm grip on its interpretation. What if Mark's meaning was that that Jesus, an anti-establishment Jewish radical, was initiating his movement for the progressive behavior by affirming that humans have always had the awesome capacity to emerge from the cocoon shaped by the paradigm of empire and into its ways of thinking and being, into a world in which community, love, and hope prevail. Mark uses the word metanoia to press this invitation to crack the hardened hearts of the people of the empire, people who had internalized and lived every day through the lens of the Roman Empire's story about their subservient status, about the use of power and the importance of power. People working to supply the privileged, struggling to live a life of subsistence. Perhaps this new story, if read differently, isn't about a relationship to Jesus or God, it's about relationships with each other, designed to unveil a worldview in which the citizens of the empire were called to be full participants, not just consumers and providers for the privilege. This was a message not about shifting their thinking, but was about transforming their lives. In a famous quote, Buckminster Fuller says that this way you never change things by fighting the existing reality. To change things, build a new model that makes the existing reality obsolete. It is possible that this story of the birth of Jesus is such a model. Is it possible that this Jewish teacher wasn't calling for an institutional religion, but a way of life, a change of framework, a metanoia? This kind of transformation of thought is both a challenge and an invitation urging us, Christian or not, to transcend the paradigm that tells us that there are no real alternatives to the way things are, to a persistent and growing divide between rich and poor, to a destructive global warming, to insurance company lobbying, or top-down Wall Street banking power. We can choose the common good. Metanoia brings us to the point where we can come together around any pressing issue in society and create a new path and presence. The result is not to defeat opposition, not to create a win-lose, not to react in anger to those you disagree with, and not to match the antagonism of political pundits and talk radio hate mongers, but to bring all of us involved to a new space of cooperation on the larger story. Doing so out of different experiences, out of exposure to otherness that stretches our boundaries and our abilities, and by living life with a new set of goals. Too often, conflict is about negotiation or compromise, where there are expectations created about giving something up. What kind of world would it be if the expectation of most conflict management processes was to create something new, something that had not even been thought of or considered before? What if our goal wasn't to look at your way or my way, but a third way, something new, something different? I've come to understand that being creative, egalitarian, spiritual, community, and justice-driven does not absolve any of us of the responsibility for having performance measures. The difference is getting the job done, worker productivity, the maximization of profits is traditionally based on our current corporate model of empire thinking and designed for creating shareholder equity and the de-emphasizing of personal and societal wholeness. I don't know about you, but it doesn't seem as if the current financial crisis and the good portion of the solutions lead me to believe this model is not working all that effectively. It seems to be a time in the world to create shift around this whole concept of productivity. Productivity at the expense of personhood, productivity at the expense of sustainability, productivity at the expense of the sense of what is sacred in all of us. This drive for productivity has built a capitalistic world empire, and there is a shadow side, a side that has brought us to constant international conflict, a lack of universal health care, global climate destabilization, and the consistent lack of civility in our political process. 40 years ago, Bobby Kennedy cited another Greek thought. He said, "Let us dedicate ourselves to what the Greeks wrote so many years, to tame the savages of man and make gentle the life of this world. To tame the savages of humans and make the gentle this life of the world," another Greek concept written so many years ago. Thousands of years later, in a time of great challenge to the world, we find wisdom in this ancient Greek concept. For each one of us has the ability to participate in this cycle. We all have the ability to find wisdom from the ages and reframe and to make the existing model obsolete by creating a new one. Inspiration is not garnered from the litanies of what is flawed. It resides in humanity's willingness to restore, redress, reform, recover, reimagine, and reconsider. Healing the wounds of Earth and its people does not require saintliness or a political party. It is not liberal or conservative. It is a sacred act. And then the angel said to them, "Do not be afraid, for behold, I bring you good tidings of great joy, which will be to all people, a message for everyone, not just the ones favored by the empire. And this will be the sign to you. You will find a babe wrapped in swaddling cloths, lying in a manger, a common baby born out among those who could not afford better." And suddenly there was with the angel a multitude of the heavenly host praising God and saying, "Glory in God to the highest, and on earth peace, goodwill toward men." Even in this more traditional language, peace, not through strength, not through force, not through war, but peace through goodwill, through a new way of relationships. This was a radical concept, a new framework, a shift of consciousness, a metanoia moment. As a Unitarian Universalist, we can separate the story from the dogma. We can find inspiration and not beholden to the institution. We can evolve with insight and not have to identify with the empire. We all have the power to act in a way that promotes the holiness of this creation and the respect that each one of us in this planet deserves. So the beginning of this Christmas week, I ask all of us to shift our thoughts a little bit I hope that we can be open to delivering a different reading of this story, a new way of thinking, a blossoming of possibilities, another source to feed transformation. May we find a way to look past our stories of empire. May we seek the true possibilities that the nativity of a new idea can bring. May we help each other find that third way. May there truly be a new hope that grows from the story of the birth of any child in poverty. And may we tirelessly work for real peace on earth through goodwill, a novel concept, and my deepest and most fervent prayer. Comments?
I guess the question is, what's the catalyst? Where's the leadership in making that happen? Is it at a personal level and or a much bigger, broader scale level? What's going to make it happen? A new way of looking, new way of doing things.
That's the problem. This writer is appealing to individuals. He thinks it's going to be a groundswell of just people changing and making it happen spontaneously. I think we all can see that that's not working. It takes some kind of a leader to galvanize people. It took Christ to galvanize the people of the ancient world, to give them a lesson and use inspiration. The Bible uses miracles, which may or may not have occurred, but some people believe in those, and when they were written 100 years after Christ's life, that helped transform people. We need leadership too, and that is what we ask from our political leaders, is inspiration. And that was one of my regrets. Obama was an inspiring speaker and had a message to bring, but when he went to the White House, he quit traveling. If you remember what our last president did, every week he was going to another rally and keeping his people all fired up and inspired and ready to fight. Obama went right to the path of governing, did the best he could, but never went out in public, never inspired people. He didn't use that rhetoric. He was an introvert who could be an extrovert and could speak when he had to, but he didn't want to. And I regret terribly that he kind of let us down and let the movement kind of die off. And I think that's what has brought us to where we are now. And politically, we still don't have an inspirational leader. Father Joe is a really nice guy, but he is not really inspirational. I think he has his heart in the right place, and I think he's trying to do the right thing, but we need someone who can stand up and lead us. And I regret to say that because I don't believe in giving one person all the power. So I'm kind of torn between how do we give somebody the authority, how do we find somebody who can speak for us, but not let them speak in our place. I'm still looking for the answers for that. And we'll keep doing that every Sunday. So, anything else? Good message. I like these messages. The words are too big and the sentences are too long, and I'll work on shortening them up. But the meaning, the stuff that's in there, I think is very important. Okay, our offering. Oh, I need to throw you this first. Can you see this one? When your church has no budget for a camel, 2 humps on a horse, and they let it through the church for the living display. I just couldn't pass that up. Okay, as always, if you need something, take it out. If you can contribute to help the community, we did our part Saturday, putting some in the pot and helping other people be generous and add to the pot. We will continue to do that here. So if you need something, let us know. And then there we go. hymn is 238, within the shining star. There's the star. Within the shining of a star, the miracle of each new birth can shake and save the stony earth. Triumphantly, the newborn's cry strikes echoes from the waiting sky. I'm sure you'd rather hear people sing that, but we don't seem to be able to do that yet. So if we have lyrics that are worth it, we're going to go ahead and say them so you know what they're about, because the lyrics, I think, are important in these. Closing words for Christmas Eve benediction. These words are by Maureen Killeran. She's in the UU source material and very prominent there. Today in this community, we have shared stories, sung carols, opened our hearts to the beauty of music. Today we have turned to one another, lighting each other's candles in the dark. Today we have dared to hear a message of hope, spoken once again against the challenge of the world. It is now time to depart, to go forward to our lives and to the world. May joy be your companion, whether you are with others or alone. May love be your strength, and may the gift of community dwell in your heart. For here in this place, you will always be welcome, whenever you choose, whenever you need. Postlude. donuts in the back. Even if everybody takes one, we'll have enough, so I'll have some for Christmas. I hope you all have a chance to get a sleigh ride sometime. Have a good Christmas week. Have a good Christmas. Hope to see you. I won't be there, but hopefully you'll be able to go to El Dorado on Friday for the Christmas Eve service. If not, look on Facebook like around midnight for whatever I find able to do here. Be safe. Wear your mask. This is a dangerous time, and I'm afeared it is going to get worse. So that ends our service for today.